Hi, just wanted to make a quick video about something I got from AliExpress recently. And this was from BIGTREETECH, also known as BIGTREETECH on AliExpress. It is the TMC 5160 motor drivers. Now, these are pretty new. I think I got them more or less as soon as they went on sale. And I've received them and I've ordered them and a bunch of stuff for a new printer that I'm building. But when I went to try and see actually just videos, I went on YouTube, tried to see videos about people using these, and to be honest, I couldn't find anything. But I figured that what the hell, they seem pretty good, and I ordered them. And then I got them a few days ago, and again, I tried to go on YouTube, see if anyone made any tutorials. In the meantime, I couldn't really find anything on there, so I figured I would give it a go. Now, as we can see, the soldering on these, it's okay. They're not the prettiest, but they will do. Some of them are a little bit sloppier than others, but they do work. They all of them, I've tested them briefly, and they do work. Now, my plan, and actually something else I've ordered, is the SKR version 1.3 board, also from BIGTREETECH. And the nicest thing about this is that it's meant to work with the TMC drivers, so that you have little jumpers here, and that means that you don't have to do any of the jumper wires that are common on using it with like something like a ramp setup. I had to do that for a friend a few months ago, and that worked. That was a hell of an upgrade, but it looked a bit messy, so this is much nicer. Now the drivers themselves, they're pretty much as I've gotten them, apart from I've had to solder on my diagnostic pin. Now, some of you will know that is how you get your stall guard signal. So if you want to do sensorless homing, that would be, well, you need to solder that pin. And that's something else actually on here. Not only do you get the pins for SPI, but if you look closely on here, you can see we have pins for the sensorless homing. And then you can connect these through to your end stop pins with these little jumpers there. And you can actually, well, I've decided to wire all of them in, and then I can just take these off if I want to use actual end stops for any of the axes rather than sensorless homing. Cool. Now, I did have to obviously compile Marlin to run on this. This is a 32-bit board, so it does use Marlin 2.0. And one of the big things when I first started trying it, I went onto the GitHub page for BQ, and I figured they're the manufacturer, they'll have their own version of Marlin, and yeah, they do. By all means, they do. If you go on firmware, they have a Marlin version for it. However, it's about 2 months old. But I did that. I downloaded it. I tried to change a few parameters on there, compiled it, and it didn't work. I kept getting the TMC communication error, so something wasn't working with my motor drivers. Now, at that point, I was getting a bit worried, because, well, I kind of expected it to just be working. And the fact that the instructions are, well, they're the typical sort of, they're in English, but it's not always the clearest, as you kind of expect from a Chinese manufacturer. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was worried something might be broken. However, what I did actually is I saw someone else on Reddit that had the SKR board. However, they had the genuine water drivers, the TMC5160s. And this was working fine for him. So I figured, like, oh hell, I'll ask if there's anything different that he's doing. And to be honest, one of the main things he said to just make sure I got the latest Marlin, and that was probably something that I hadn't thought of, is actually the latest version of Marlin 2.0 has support for the TMC 5160s and also support for the SKR board. So yeah, don't get stuff from their GitHub. Get stuff from the official Marlin downloads and modify it. Perfect. So realistically, I then had to change a few things. This is Marlin 2.0. I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but to get them working properly, obviously main thing you have to change is, here we go. So you obviously want to change all of your axes to TMC5160, depending on which ones you're using. And then in here, there's a few options for TMC Advanced. So let's go a bit down. Here we go. So within the TMC Advanced, you do want to change your RSense value to 0.075 from the default 0.11. And that's because these drivers use a different version of the sense resistor. So they use a different value, and if you don't change that, then the current values have no meaning. Other than that, one thing you do have to enable, and this is actually in BQ's instructions, is that TMC uses software SPI. Now that's defined by default in the boards file, so you don't actually need to change any pins on here, but you do need to enable that, and that lets them communicate through the board without you having to run any of those jumpers. Pretty much other than that, you can just do your own settings, but that was pretty much the main thing. So realistically, out of that, that may be one more thing. Now, the main reason I wanted these drivers is because they're rated for a higher current than the TMC2130s. Like I said, I've played around before with the TMC2130s on a friend's printer, and that was, well, it ended up working out fine. However, it needed tuned for the right speed at the right current, because the 2130s can only go up to maybe an amp, whereas I think these are rated for around about 2 amps, if not a bit more. They're meant to be able to run without a heatsink because they use external MOSFETs. However, you can put a heatsink on it. I think in the long run, I'm going to put one on just for safety. You do actually get the heatsinks. I don't have them here, but you do get heatsinks in the packaging when you order these from BQ. That's just other datasheet stuff. Obviously, one of the main reasons I went for these is also the fact that you get what's it called, stealth chop, right, which is their silent mode of operation. So if you want something that is a lot quieter than your usual drivers, then these might be a really good idea. Yeah, I mean, once I've done that, then obviously you can just build and upload your... Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention, just while I'm still waiting for this to build. Marlin 2.0 does actually take quite a long time to build. But then again, you don't have to do that so often once the build is completed and you've got your printer set up and running. These actually surprisingly didn't take all that long to arrive. So you can see I ordered them as well as a bunch of stuff for my new printer that I'm designing. My bad. I ordered them on March 28th, and then they shipped them out on the 9th of April, which that took a while, but again, I ordered the drivers pretty much as soon as they went on sale. So I'm not even sure if they had the stock at the moment. But after that, April 9th to April 15th is when I got these. So that was pretty quick delivery, to be honest, and everything seems to be in order. So far so good. We'll see how the testing goes. So this is my 3D printer at the moment. It's the ANET A8. I've put a fair bit of work into it. But it's just the frame's not rigid enough and it's not big enough or fast enough for what I want to do. So that's why I'm building a new printer. But in the meantime, I'm just going to be able to use it to run a few tests. So at the moment, I'm using the stock ANET control board with whatever cheap drivers that has on it. And just to give you an idea of what that sounds like, I'm just going to connect to it via pronter face and move the axes around a little bit. Okay, so try. I can't seem to connect to the printer via printer face, so I'm just gonna do a few quick movements from the display. So just do a quick homing. Okay, and then if I move the y-axis, so that's going to move the bed. And then the x-axis, so that's going to be my extruder carriage. Well, hot unit simply, really. And you can hear how much that vibrates. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch on the new SKR board with the drivers. I'm only gonna connect the 2 axes and the power supply because I just want to do a really quick test to see what the difference is like. Here we are. So I have the new motherboard connected to the servos for the X and the Y and my power supply. And then I have the screen running for it on here. And it's all a bit dodgy, but that's fine. This is just for these tests. Okay, so I've connected via printer face on here. And you'll see I'm able to move the x-axis, and it's a hell of a lot quieter than it was before. I mean, you can barely hear the thing. Now at the moment, the y-axis, I don't know if it's an issue with my wiring or if there's something else, but if I go to move it in one direction, it's pretty quiet actually. You know, I wouldn't mind that at all. But if I go to move it in the other direction, then it's really loud. I don't know what that is. If I figure it out, then I'm gonna, let's see. Yeah, I don't know why that is. I think it might be an issue with my wiring, or, well, hopefully not, but it might be an issue with the driver. Or some other kind of weird setting, but that's basically the comparison. The other thing, I did try to get sensorless homing working. Now, that is technically working, so if I try and go on here, just on the LCD, and if I try to auto home, you're gonna see how it does that. So it does try to home. Now I need to tweak the sensitivity for this, which I'm not going to do because that would pretty much be a waste of time at this point, since I'm not going to install this board with these drivers on this printer. But I think for my new build, if possible, I would love to have sensorless homing just to keep it all nice and simple. But that was just a quick look at these new drivers, and as long as I can sort out that issue, they seem to be working fine, which is awesome. They seem pretty good.